Bukhari to Sahih Muslim. I would pick those 2 books up and I would take Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasai, Ibn Majah, all of these hadith books, and I will say that I, as a 10-year-old, will look into the Quran, will follow according to what I understand from the Quran, because everyone will say that that is absolute ignorance. You cannot expect a 10-year-old to do that. The 10-year-old, majority of them today, 98% of them don't even know how to understand the Quran. But the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا بَلَغُوا عَشْرٍ فَاضْرِبُوهُمْ. If they reach the age of 10, then strike them if they don't pray. Use force if they don't pray. So here you have a 10-year-old. How does that 10-year-old find out about the deen? Does he go straight to the Quran? Does he go straight to the shelf and take out Bukhari? He does not. He asks his father. His father tells him. Where did his father find out from? Where did his uncle find out from? The uncle found out. If his uncle is a person, like many of you sitting here, you're busy, you've got a business, you've got children to look after, you've got studies to carry out, you're in the education field of, let's say, engineering. You haven't got the time to spend 10 years to read and to understand to the depth of what the Sahabas understood of the religion, so that you can follow the Quran and Sunnah direct. You haven't got the understanding. So what do? You leave the work for one person. You leave the work for one person. And that one person spends his time, spends his effort, looks in the Quran, looks in the Sunnah, spends his lifetime on it. And then comes down and says, I think, after looking at the Sunnah, after looking in the Quran, I think Ameen should be read loudly. Another one will say, I think Ameen should be said quietly. And they both have evidence. Not that they don't have evidence, both have evidence. So one says, okay, I will leave it to this person. Like in those days, in the time of the Sahabas, there were many Sahabas who did not have the time. What did they do? Did they say that we're going to now suddenly stop working and go to the Prophet ﷺ and learn it directly? Some Sahabas did not have the time. If you look in I think it's Tirmidhi or Abu Dawud, the hadith. كَانَ أَخْوَانِ عَلَىٰ عَهْدِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. There were 2 brothers in the Messenger ﷺ's time. كَانَ أَحَدُهُمَا, one of them used to يَأْتِ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ. One of them used to come to the Prophet ﷺ. وَالْآخَرْ يَحْتَلِفْ. And the other one used to go out and work. But the brother who was working used to provide the means for the brother who was serving in the Prophet ﷺ's majlis, in his place. So, فَشَكَ الْمُحْتَرِفُ أَخَاهُ لِلنَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. The one who was working came to the Prophet ﷺ and he complained, my brother, he's always coming and sitting with you and learning the deen, and I'm working. So the Prophet ﷺ said, لَعَلَّكَ تُرْزَقُ بِهِ. Maybe your sustenance, maybe your rizq, maybe your food, maybe your good life that you have is because of your brother who's coming to my majlis. From this hadith we understand, this brother did not have time to sit with the Prophet ﷺ. So where did he get his deen from? From other Sahabas, from other people. And that's how the deen continues. Some people have the time, some people have the knowledge, some people have the ability to look directly in the Quran and Sunnah, and some people don't. This was from the Sahaba's time. This is from the Prophet's time. This is not from our time. This is not from 6 centuries later after the Prophet ﷺ. This is from the Sahaba's time. And I'll give you a clear understanding of that from a hadith of Bukhari. In the Prophet ﷺ, and I think this hadith should remain with us as something which brings us together, which makes us think about one another in a way that we love one another. You know, I can have a misunderstanding from you. I can say to you, well, when I pray, I'm going to have my hands here on my chest. And my brother can have his hand down here, near his navel. I can approach him and say to him that, look, my hadith or what I see and the way I've understood the religion and the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is closer here. And my brother can dispute me, or he can disagree with me. He can say, no, I believe it should be this way. But end of the day, I'm a Muslim. He's a Muslim. We live together. We work for one another. We love one another. The Quran says, لا تفرقوا. Don't separate from one another. The Quran, nowhere in the entire Quran you will find it says, لا تختلفوا. Find me in the Quran where it says, don't have a disagreement. But you will find in the Quran it says, don't separate from one another. There's a difference in the two. But anyhow, as I was saying, in the Sahaba's time, there's one hadith of Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ, he was going to Banu Qurayza, this place. And he said to his companions, "La tusallu al-asr." Do not pray the Salah of Asr until you come to Banu Qurayza. And the Prophet ﷺ left early. So he got to Banu Qurayza on time, he got there early. His Sahabas left after him. They were on their way. Midway, they fell into a disagreement. One party of Sahabas said that the time of Asr is going. We have to pray Asr now. The other party said, the Prophet ﷺ said, do not pray your Asr until you get to Banu Qurayza. We are not in Banu Qurayza. Therefore we will not pray. The other party said, hang on a minute. The Prophet ﷺ did not mean that. The Prophet ﷺ thought we will reach Banu Qurayza on time for Asr. Therefore the Prophet ﷺ said, do not pray Asr until we reach Banu Qurayza. We'll pray with him. So they fell into a disagreement. One party prayed the Salah, and the other party said, no, we are not going to pray. Now there's nothing wrong with that. For one hadith, okay? There are not two hadiths here, only one hadith. They are the Sahabas, they're the best people after the Prophet ﷺ. Way beyond us, the Prophet ﷺ says that the people after the Sahabas, لَوْ أَنْفَقَ أَحَدُهُمْ مِثْلَ أُحُدٍ ذَهَبَ. If a person after the Sahabas spent in terms of sadaqah and charity a whole mountain full of gold in the path of Allah, then the Prophet ﷺ says, لَمَا عَدَلَ. This person spending a whole mountain full of gold will not even be the same in terms of reward as one of my companions who gives one single date in the path of Allah. And then the hadith of Muslim, وَلَوْ نَصِيفَ. Even if my Sahabi gives half a date in the path of Allah, the reward he will get, the sincerity he will have, and the amount of reward Allah will give him will never ever match with what another person will give. So these are the Sahabas, the best people. They came to the Messenger ﷺ and they said to him, this is what happened on the pathway. Now, your understanding, my understanding, according to what's happening in this mad world today, is that one is right and the other is wrong. One cannot be, they both cannot be right. That's how we've seen. That's why we say it's either this way of the Quran or it's either this way of the Quran. It's either this way in the Sunnah or it's that way. There cannot be two ways. We say either you should have your hand on your chest or you should have your hands on your navel. Either you should say Ameen loudly, which is correct, or you can say Ameen quietly, which is correct. But they both cannot be correct. Either in Tahiyyah you should move your hands up and down, or you should move it sideways. You cannot have it both ways. We have something, either you say Surah Fatiha inside the Salah, or you do not say. There cannot be two ways about it. You can't say that they both are right. But let's look at the Prophet ﷺ, the greatest mufti, bigger than all the sheikhs that we have, all the books that you've ever come across. Every book you've ever come across, save the Quran. Every other person you've come across, save the Rasul ﷺ. Let's look at what the Prophet ﷺ says. They come to the Prophet ﷺ, and he did not reprimand any of the two. He did not say to one party, your salah is qada now. You must repeat your prayer. You have misunderstood my words. You have gone against my words. You have done khilaf or against, you are in contradictory to my words. The Prophet ﷺ did not say that. He made a statement which showed that one came to the correct understanding and the other made a mistake. But the Prophet ﷺ in another hadith states, in a hadith of Bukhari, Al-mujtahid lahu ajran, or lil-mujtahidi ajran, or kama qala alayhi salatu salam. Every person who thinks and uses the tool of ijtihad, which is to think with the recommended and prerequisite tools of Islam, in the Quran and in the Sunnah, in the Ahadith, in the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, in the sayings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one who thinks, in asaba falahu ajran, wa in akhta'a falahu ajrun wahid. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, if this person who is looking in the Quran